Well, good night. Welcome to this conversation about that woman. We are enjoyed by volunteers and former from Imfundo Kahle. And we tell us about their appreciation around some topics. These topics today is the history of women. Okay, so the first question is, what has really been made in the recognition of women?
Anna Rose, would you like to start?
Yeah, of course. Hi, I'm Anna Rose. I think that there is a lot that we can say has been achieved in recognition of women over the history of the world. Obviously, we have things like women can hold political positions in a lot of places in the world. In many places, they have the opportunity to vote, to have similar jobs as men, and even make the same amount of money, or close to the same amount of money in a lot of places. But I do think that it's also important to see like that we as women, it's always really important to remember as women, where our value comes from, and that it doesn't come from what we achieve or the things that we have or the things that we don't have, but it comes from the fact that we are women and we are humans, and we have been given that value from the time that we were born, and that can't be taken away from us. It can't be more or less based on what we do or what we don't do, and the way that people recognize us. And so I think that is something that is also helpful to remember. And I think women have achieved that as well, that we've started to recognize more our own value, not from what we are achieving or these physical things that we have, but just because we are people.
Thanks. And
Yeah, Joe, would you like to keep going with the thought?
With what we've achieved? Sure. Hi, I'm Joe. And I do think women have achieved quite a bit. And I guess I'm going to guess that I'm a little bit older than most of you guys on the call right now. And so I think what's always very interesting is having been through a little bit earlier of the ERA and women's rights and coming from that perspective from the United States, it's always very interesting to me to see what a difference 20 years makes. And when I have conversations with women, the kind of things that someone my age, I'm 47, almost 48, for instance. And so people my age and above still have certain consolations, things will, shake off or not do that somebody 20 years behind me would never tolerate and never do and doesn't have to. And I kind of love that not too far behind me are people that really see a much more fluid line. And so I do think women have achieved quite a bit. Certainly there's more for us to do, but I think you can really see that difference. And I feel it markedly when I talk to people younger than myself to see, oh gosh, you don't even think about that. Wow, I still think about it because it was part of my reality, right? And so I think that's a huge achievement to know that that's not even, certain things are just not even part of the conversation anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you too. And before I talk, I would like to let Kaylee give her opinion, if you'd like.
Okay, hello. I hope you guys can hear me right because this computer is kind of like old, but okay. Well, I think it's basically what you guys just said. We have achieved a lot, and maybe there's things that we're still working on. Maybe we're still like facing with discrimination just on the base of our sex, but real progress has been made, and we've been seeing that. We've been seeing those kinds of progresses in the results that you guys just mentioned, the right of vote, have like higher positions that maybe we never could have had like back then. Um, and I'm just like proud of that. I'm sure that we can like accomplish more things.
Yeah, Mika, would you like to add something?
Yes, hi, I'm Mika. Yeah, I totally agree with what all of you guys have said. Um, I'm only 16. I'm just 18, 17 in a couple of weeks. But from my short experience, like we have come a long way from where we started. In my case, I was the first director of the debate team in my school. Like I was the first female lead in any charge in my school. And it was something that I talked with my friends and I talked with girls from grades above me. And they were like you are the first one that I can actually go and ask things that are not like, hey, can you give me a tampon or something like that? Like I can talk politics with you. I can talk social problems with you. Like they just thought that there are so many little girls here in Peru and really like they have no one to talk. I had one of my friends, she's the only female in a political party here in Peru. She's from Fuerza Popular and she's trying to work with um, leadership courses and workshops for little girls in places they don't get education and teach them that politics is not only something from men and you can also go into politics, I don't know, doing volunteering, doing some work in NGO like Imfundo Kahle. And not only that, also one of my areas that I love to explore is the part of literature. Like Jane Austen was one of the first girls and women that actually wrote a book and got sell. In the 70s, a woman couldn't like actually publish their books because they wouldn't sell, they wouldn't get published or something like that. J.K. Rowling, for example, she had to change her name to actually get published and actually sell books. And now she's one of the most richest person in the world. So yeah, I believe we have come a long way. We have a long way to go, but we've gone really far.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you all said. And I think just the fact that we are here from different countries and places discussing this topic is so relevant in the history. And the young girls like Mika, for example, they already understand the importance of keep going in this progress. So I am from a small city, and here the reality was just you get out of high school and you get married and you build a family, and there's nothing else for you out there. So you can just like settle now. And now it's not the only option anymore. If you want to do that, it's okay. But if you also want to go for more and to go for education and graduation and learn another language, it's there for you. So I think we have much more things on the table now just because many, many other women fought for us back there. And I think it's like a real progress that the society can today see these kind of talks and this kind of movements that are happening towards the change. So that was something I would like to add to.
So if you have to choose one event important for the woman, what would you say is the most important event for the woman in the history?
Yeah, sure. Well, I don't have one that I wrote down, so I don't really know. But I mean, there's so many, and I think one that I was just like looking at some videos the other day, and one that I think really caught my attention that I didn't know about was after the Second World War, when the UN was formed, Eleanor Roosevelt drafted or oversaw the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And that was a huge thing of progress for women, for her to be the one that oversaw that, and that kind of like declared that for the whole world, globally. I think that's a big thing that marked history. And I think also just women in general throughout history taking the time to, just like hearing what each of you guys had to say in the last question, like women throughout history taking the time to show other women that they are valuable. Because I think a lot of times throughout history, the reason that women have not aimed for more or have not gone for more is because they don't recognize their own value. And so they're like, oh, I don't have a purpose. I'm just supposed to be a wife and a mother, and that's all I do, or a maid or whatever, a servant. But when other women have recognized their own value and recognized value in other women and taken the time to say, hey, you are valuable and you deserve to get an education, you deserve to pursue what you're passionate about, and have helped in those. I think each of those little things that could have seemed really little have created so much impact, and that happening time and time again has led to us being able to do things like have this conversation today. And so I think it's not one thing that has marked that before and after, but has been just this slow progress of women choosing to speak that truth into the lives of other women.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. And when I think about this question, I think the two things that really came to mind for me were, ideally the right to vote, which women often got behind minorities, which is not to say minorities, but it went white men, minorities, women, often in that, kind of progression. And so I think anytime we've gotten the right to vote, no matter when that was, even those that came much later, I think it's certainly an opportunity for us to be able to have a bigger voice. Whether we choose to use that always is another thing, but I do think at least it was definitely a win to be able to do that. And then I think of going into the 60s and 70s when women finally could, have a bank account without their husband being the co-signer on it. They could get a credit card. To think that it was still 1970 before a woman could even have her own bank account is crazy to me. And so just being able to have that kind of financial independence, finally not being tied to someone else, I think is also another huge win that helped us move forward.
Haley, would you like to keep going, please?
This question made me think a lot. I think maybe that one of the most things that we've really been seeing, for example, in my case, is in education. Because, for example, I'm from I grew up in a small little town where women didn't have that not much choices to choose for education. For example, they did have a choice to study something, but they were exclusively nursing. Or they didn't have that much field. But now I've been seeing that every time there's more women taking the courage to study something, maybe where it's engineering or something that was really rare. And I think in this case, well, because I've seen it, it's gonna be in education. I studied an engineer, and we were a total of 5 girls that graduated. And the teachers were astonished because they were it's the first time that so much girls graduate. I'm what? There's only 5. but they said that it was rare for a woman like to study something that was a bit, you know, like harsh or difficult to say in that course. The same in other fields like economics or politics. Um, I've been seeing that with my own eyes. So I just chose that it's going to be education.
Mika, would you like to add something to this question?
Yeah. Well, more in the part of media and films and comics and all that, one thing that every human being search is representation. I believe one of the most iconic moments in history, well, there are several, but one of the most iconic moments in history was when the first Wonder Woman comic came out. It was for the first time in history, the first time that a woman was the lead. The woman was not only a wife or a mother or the damsel in distress, she was the hero. It was one way of saying to every single girl in the moment, like, you can do anything you want. Like, you can be your own hero if you want it. Especially in action gender, that it has been so long dominated by Bonds, Born of Batman, and with Wonder Woman, it was like, hey, like, you're not alone. You can go search for help. You can be your own Wonder Woman. And it has been in the whole film franchise that it has been a lot of strong women representation. Princess Leia in Star Wars, Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games, Diana Prince in Wonder Woman in the 2017 film. It's like, I believe that's one of the most important ones because it's the one that it reach the more population for it says. Like, you could see it in the films, you could see it in the store, you can see it in the bakery, everybody was talking about it. Like, it was the most popular one at the time and right now also. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point of view, Mika. I really haven't thought of that. I was just going through the problems. I guess sometimes it's what we do when we think about accomplishments and things for women, like how was such a big problem and she came up with a solution. So I think it's great. And I would just like to add that I think the birth pill was also a historic thing that helped us women a lot. It reaches out another problematic that women are responsible for the pregnancy and this kind of thing. So it's not only a solution, but still a problem. But still, it gives the woman the opportunity to choose back there uh, whether they wanted to grow a big family or not, and how would they like to I don't know, raise their families if they would like to have more kids or not. I mean, they could have this kind of control. So it's not the ideal yet. I think it's a lot of conscience and this kind of men have also to participate into these processes, but I still think it's a great thing that helped us a lot to accomplish things in education and at work also. And yeah, I would like to add that.
So I think it's so important that Anna says. I agree with Anne. It's a process in progress. So and it's continue in our days. Have you experienced any change that have marked them in your personal history? Um, for example, Mika tell us about her friends in Fuerza Popular here in Peru. Do you know about other cases or in your close experience, do you know a special woman who marks your history maybe?
I think for me, in my own personal life, I have lots of examples of of women that I've learned from or who have been examples to me, encouragement to me. My mom, for instance, has always been a great, I think, she never like placed like a difference between men and women, but she always made me feel like you can do whatever you set your mind to, and like don't let other people tell you what you can or can't do. And so I think that was really good for me because um it allowed my mindset to not be like a competition against men or against other whatever races or anything, but just like knowing the value of myself. And so I think one thing for me is like recognizing something that's marked my history, is recognizing like we as people, we are fallible in how we judge the value of things. So we place value on things and we place value on people, but we place more value on people who have more things, or more value on people who have achieved more, or certain things like that, when all people are valuable, whether you're a man or a woman, or you're black or you're white or you're Asian or you're whatever you are, Peruvian. We all have value and we all have purpose. And I think for like, that was something that hasn't been like one time that I figured that out, but it's been a process, kind of like Jenny was saying, of learning that and of relearning that and of recognizing that and being able to see, okay, rather than like feeling like I have to fight for people to recognize my value, I have to first renew how I see myself and renew that mindset of what my value is. And so that I can live into that and I can live believing in that, and live with confidence of that value that I've been given, so that I reflect that and other people are empowered by that. So it's not this like, I am stronger than you, or I deserve to be recognized by you, or I need to fight for these things. When sometimes, yes, you do need to fight for things, but it's this me understanding that value for myself and living fully into that, then other people will recognize and see that in me, and will have confidence in my value as well, and so I think, and other women will be empowered by that and will be like, oh yeah, great, I do too, that's so true, I can do those things too. And so I think, for me, that's been like a process, and it's something that I still have to renew all the time, because I judge as well values of people and of things, but it's something that we constantly have to be reminding ourselves of and renewing our mindset so that we can live fully into that value that we have.
I'm going to lean into that mindset piece, but I'm going to go a very different way. And I know we're talking about women that have had a big impact, and one was probably my step grandmother growing up. But what I was immediately thinking of is, I didn't really look up to women when I was growing up, not on purpose, not because anybody told me not to, but my mom passed away when I was really young, and so my dad raised me, and I was an only child, and he was an only child, and not getting remarried. And so he was always raising me to be the kind of woman he would want to marry, was what he always told me. And so there was always this, I was being raised to be a woman from what a man thought a woman should be. And he wanted me to be independent and everything else, right? But it had this really interesting influence that I feel very masculine in many situations. And I hear all the time, you're a very strong woman. And I will say, in the US, that's usually a positive thing. In Latin America, not so much, right? It's, oh, you have opinions, don't you? And yes, I do. I do have opinions. It doesn't mean I'm right, but yes, I do have opinions. And so it's never been that I don't look up to women, but it's actually taken me a very long time to create a community of women around me, because I just didn't grow up knowing how to do so. And so it's had to be something that later on in life I intentionally started doing, to where I can now say that I have many more female friends than male friends, but it took me a while to get to that space. And it's always been a very interesting perspective to kind of have, because what does it really mean to be a woman? And where did we come up with this definition? And when are you doing it right? And when are you doing it wrong? And when are you right? And so, and that's not just an external conversation, that's an internal conversation. And it becomes this really interesting sort of balancing act to almost sort of decide what role you need to play in which place. And so I don't know if anybody else feels like that or has experienced something like that, but that's certainly been my experience. So I don't want to say there haven't been impressive, amazing women around in my life, but it took me a long time to sort of get to that place and see it.
Yeah, I'm impressed. I feel like talking right now, but I'll let Keely do it. Just not to interrupt the flow.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn. Have I ever experienced any changes that have marked me? I think it's from being like a child that's very dependent on their dad, then mom, grandma, to being a young adult that's independent. I think that's one of my personal things that have marked me because I was so dependent on them that I didn't realize it. And what my grandma used to say one thing to me, she used to tell me that there is no limit. You can do things. If you don't plan on marrying, there's no problem. But your mom and dad aren't gonna be with you when you're an adult. So start hustling, start like getting ready, start preparing yourself. So now I can totally say I'm an independent person who can work by myself. I can drive by myself. I can do things without fear, and that's because I believed in myself, and I I I achieved my goals. There's still a lot of things that are like in a woman's mind. Every time like a woman achieves something and wants to get like a little bit better, but just from living like my comfort zone, that's been the huge thing. And I'm sure, if, like for example, somebody that was so dependent on like parents or whatever, to just jump to that huge like change, that's like amazing. If I can do it, I'm sure that many women can. They can be independent. Don't necessarily need to like be depending on a man or I don't know what other situation, but that's like proof that we can do anything that we can set our minds to. I think that's what I have to say.
I believe now is my turn. So I've like I've always lived with my mom. My mom is a single one. Well, not always. It was there. I had a short period where I lived with my grandpa, and I was actually being raised to be adult. Well, what my family thought being adult and a good wife and a good mother and a good woman should be. And it was actually like now, right now, with everything I know and who I am, I think back and it's like I didn't had any personality. I had lots of trust issues, and I always used to compare myself to everyone. And I believe that my mom was one of the big part of the change I made. Well, first of all, she got pregnant at 16, and she got pregnant at 16, and I was born when she was 16, and she never complained, and she always saw the bright side of everything, and she's one of the strongest person I know. Like right now, she has 3 jobs and also do volunteering and raise me and does like almost everything in the house. So yeah, that will be my person that makes history. And also I have and Maria Gracia. She actually works with Berta in Imfundo Kahle. She's a sociologist and she's come a long way from where she was. And I believe those two will be for me. Like, and also like most of you said, there wasn't like really, it's really like, it's really difficult to actually choose one or choose any at all, because you're not like, at least my generation and below, we haven't been raised to look up to women. Like, I don't know, people from the TV or in your family, we weren't raised to look up to them. But right now, it will be those two to the moment.
Yeah, I'm kind of mind blowing here because it's so many different perspectives from one question, and I love this interaction and how the conversation goes to one side and another. And I would like to add to what you already said, that yeah, I think what Anna said is really important, that we sometimes we are kind of forced. This empowerment is really important when we are talking about growing and moving forward and doing things, achieving especially. But I think sometimes we are kind of created, the idea of fighting is so much in us that we think we have to fight with everything, and we have to be, it's not like aggressive but reactive to things, and we people are against us and nobody wants us to grow, and we have to like it's so it's kind of a thought that I don't like. I prefer to believe in that too, that we already have our value and we don't have to spend our lives trying to prove it to no one. I think it would be a lost cause, because people are always see what's on their perspective. So we can't make them believe we are worth it if we don't believe that. So I really feel when Anna said that, because it's something I try to do too. Not to be that kind of girl who says, no, you have to believe it, you have to do it, but to do it myself, and to be the way I am and try to influence people and not force them to have a kind of a vision. And that's what I would like to mention. And about what Joe said, also, I feel really connected to that words, because for me too, sometimes I feel like all the women in my family, they're really strong women. So they're like, it's what people say, the men of the house. So they have to go and work and solve problems and pay the bills and do everything else. So I was kind of created to have the same pattern. So I had this belief in me that I would have to have this behavior, to be aggressive, to be self-driven, and I was really serious at some before college. I was a really serious girl. I believed that if I was a smiley girl or a cute girl, people would not respect me. And then I had to grow this behavior that I didn't like to have. I wanted to be friendly. I wanted to like to engage with other women and to talk about silly things if I want. And I had this belief in myself that if I did that, so people would not believe me, and then I would try to act like a man. So I had this kind of, yeah, what would a man do? Like they're so strong, and this is so stupid, because what is it like to be a woman? I really love that question, and I think I will leave us all with that, because it's really huge and we can have as many parts as we want. We don't have to define ourselves just to be strong and independent. We can also be fragile and mothers and friends and daughters and mothers and so on.
Yeah, the family is so important in our progress, definitely. Especially our mothers, and they are strong. So my mother and my grandmother are my example too. And well, how do you think about society's reception of women progress? Do you think society supports women's progress or rejects it? And in your opinion, what need our society to support our progress?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think that it depends, obviously, on the place. I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, well, every country is a different culture and has a different background, has a different history, and so obviously, different things that happen are received in a different way and with a different mindset. And so men think about it differently, and women think about it differently, and races think about it differently. And and so I was just thinking, man, it's so interesting to see now how, because technology is advancing so quickly, how things are kind of like more a little bit more similar of responses these days, from these different cultures and different places, uh because like if something happens in one country and people are like, man, look at this injustice that happened, and people react to that, people in other countries are like, oh, wait a second, we're going to react to that too. So it's really interesting to see how we've kind of like connected in the past, I mean, really past like year or two, and especially because of the pandemic. um and so I do think that, I mean, I think since the beginning of time, uh that women have been making a lot of progress, and that has in certain moments been recognized or received by society in different ways. I think that there's always going to be, like I talked about before, there's always going to be this judgment of value of women and men, and placing them in a certain place in society and with a certain value. And so I think that's always been misjudged. So I think, kind of like Priscilla said, like people are going to think what they're going to think, and we're not going to be able to always change their mindset. But I think that when we choose to receive what other women are doing, and we choose to act, to be progress makers and to be believers of our own value, then we are already excelling that reception of progress, if that makes sense. And so I think just every day seeing even little things around your neighborhood, or like serving others, and making them feel valuable and loved, and understand more of their value, you are making progress and receiving the progress achieved by women just by promoting that in little ways. So I would say that's.
Yeah, without going down a too deep rabbit hole on the part of cultures and stuff, right? I mean, it's very from country to country, and like I immediately go to the Norwegian countries where there's a lot more equality between men and women, and has been for a long time. And when you look at even archaeologically speaking, they're now finding tombs of Vikings, and many of the Viking biggest warriors and leaders were women, right? So it's a culture that has historically actually always put women at a very even level, right? And so you see how that's translated, even centuries forward. So it's just one little thing that came to mind when you were talking about that. But the other part of the question is, what do we need to do to help this progress? Who do we need, to bring in? And I work with a lot of people as a coach. I work with a lot of women who want to work with other women. And I think working with other women is great, but we got to bring men to the table. We've got to have men as champions. We've got to have men in our corner. And that means we've got to stop making enemies of men. And we've got to stop telling them how much they've done wrong to us and what they've done poorly and what they got to stop doing, and start saying maybe what they've done right, and point out, the past is the past. We've been there. We know it didn't work. What do we do? It's no longer what is the problem, the answer, what is the solution? And it's not, don't tell me what we can't do, just tell me how we can. That's all I want to know is how can we do it? And bring them to the table and listen to their answers. Because I think there's men that want to have a stronger voice, but especially since Me Too, they're scared. They're scared to come to the table. And so I think there are men that are out there, but I think especially in those countries where we're behind, in some of that progress, that that's the first thing we need to do is we need to get more men at the table, and we need to stop pushing them away from it. So that's my humble opinion on that.
Okay, so now it's my turn. What Joe just said, wow, really impacted me. That's totally true. I mean, everybody has like a different mindset, cultures, and everything. But we all know the struggles that women have had. But I think that what Joe said is like one of the answers. We're raising our voices, but we need men to step in. I think that's an excellent thing.
Yeah, actually, just I believe Joe is totally right. We need to bring men to the table, but well, not but like I like in my daily life, I have lots of male friends. Like they're just like the best. I adore them, and sometimes it's difficult talking to them about these subjects. Here in Peru, we have a female, like a crime to female every single hour. Not every single one goes to the news, but the ones that goes, we always try to talk about them because they know they affect me one way or another. Like I can get mad or I can get sad. And I like that they feel safe with me talking about like, I don't know, uh, women should do X, Y, F. Like I feel like one of my recent conversations with my best friend, and he's a guy, he said to me that he didn't like that some women took the Me Too movement as an answer to why they're mean to men. And he was like, I don't like it. Like I could be like a good guy, like he was like, me, I'm a good guy. I just want to talk, or I just want to like study and do my group work at college. And they're like so mean to me, and I don't know why I did. And we need to have safe space, not only for women to talk, but also for men, because we like it or not, they have some good ideas, and they're human beings. They're gonna get mad. They're gonna make mistakes, but we need to like just go over with it. And if we're looking for equality, we need to start listening to both genders. Like we cannot be like, no, you cannot talk about this because you're a guy. You don't understand. Well, we need to make them understand. Like for example, period. Every time a guy asks, like, says something about her period, we're like, you don't understand. You don't bleed one time a month. And he's like, okay, so let's explain to them what happens to us in our period. Make them listen. Make them understand. Make them feel, I don't know, compassion or something. Like explain to them why you are so stressed about women being raped, why you're so stressed about not having a female role model. Like you need all this stuff in our society, and we need to actually explain to them because they don't know. Nobody actually explained it to them. Their fathers didn't explain to them, their moms didn't explain to them. They need to understand.
Priscilla, I know it's your turn. I want you to go in there, but I just got to say something real fast because this is one of the things that bugs me more than anything. I'm the mom of a 7-year-old boy. Why, for decades and decades, are moms not making a different choice? I don't understand when women are the ones that complain about this, but we're the ones in charge of raising them. How did it happen that we lost control of how we raise our own children? And I know it's out there, but I feel like, obviously, go back years, we can't turn back time, but gotta start with us making those different choices. I'm gonna shut up so Priscilla can talk, but you got me going, Mika.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think I will come back a little to the thought that we already kind of had, but it's the posture that we adopt, that being aggressive and being like we are the owners of everything and we are right, and like nobody else has the right to say anything else. I think we have to be open to teach people and to engage people to the cause, because the way people see the feminist movement right now is just like, oh no, they're aggressive and they just say bad things about men and like this kind of things. And this is not relevant. The relevant is the data that Mika brought. Like every hour a woman is dead in Peru by a man, and in Brazil this number is pretty high too. Like every 11 minutes, a woman is raped by a man. So it's a really high number. And we have to start educating people in that, because we are talking here about privileges, like how to study and how to have a better life. But there are women that are still struggling with the basics. Like they're living abusive relationships, they're being spanked, they're being raped, and like this is not an option. We can't keep going like that anymore, and we have to be open to teach people. So I think it's not a matter of the society is open or not, but each one of us is open to teach people, to like give voice to the movement, really, or we're just there to fight and to be aggressive and to make bad comments about men and everything else. So I think it comes from there. We have to be more receptive ourselves. The movements have to be more receptive to teach people, because no one is born knowing these things, especially because the past generations are struggling with that so much. And how could we know? How could everybody know? So yeah, I agree with you. And I think this is a way of like engaging the movement and making us strong. Like everybody have to be on the same page about that.
And I want to tag onto that too, Priscilla, very quickly. Because then you said also about, being receptive, is we as women have to be receptive to what other women want. The reason we fight for equality means that really we should have the choice. We shouldn't shame people who want to be stay-at-home mothers, and we shouldn't shame other women who want to be a full force of power and a CEO one day and forgo having a family. We've got to stop shaming each other for what our desires are, because there's some set standard that we've decided is right for me, so it's got to be right for all women, and we've got to break through that as well. So I mean, we bring men to the table, but we got to bring ourselves to the table in the right way too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's really like it's a lot of times we just do so much dividing. We isolate ourselves so much from men, from other women. We say, "Oh, they don't understand," and I'm right, and no one else understands. And so, yeah, it's uniting ourselves rather than dividing and saying, hey, everyone is valuable. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you don't do. I mean, as long as you're not doing immoral things, but we all are valuable. And so what your desires are and what your passions are, pursue those, because you're valuable whether or not you pursue those things. And if that's what makes you, that what makes you live boldly and big and passionately, then great, and being encouragers no matter what, no matter, and longing to understand each other, longing to understand men's perspective and their naivety as well, being compassionate that no one ever taught them about periods or about hormones or about, the struggles of being a single mother or whatever. I think those kinds of things we have to not divide, but we have to choose to unite and to be compassionate in the, and like Joe said, to bring people into the conversation and be receptive to other people's experiences.
Also tagging along, like it just came to my mind that I actually just completely understand why some friends are really frustrated when they don't understand something that we girls go through. Like we have been so annoyed our whole life because sometimes we're in the shadows at some point with some information, with some job, with something, and right now they're in the shadows, like they don't have a voice, they don't have a say, they don't have the information, they don't have the knowledge about a lot of stuff that right now is important in a society. Like they're just like, so some of them at least are like so frustrated because they don't know and they don't have anyone to teach them. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Okay. And to finish our interesting conversation very quickly, because of the time, can you want to share with Peruvian women some measures to encourage their progress in 1 minute, please? Please.
Yeah, I would just say remembering our value as women and value of human beings in general, not placing ourselves above or below anyone, but remembering that my value doesn't come from my achievements or what I do or don't have, but that is something that is given to me from the time that I come into this world, and speaking that into other people, living that out so that other people can believe that fully as well.
Yeah, I think especially, so for Peruvian women living here, I think it's just important for women to come together in general to continue having these conversations. Also, because what I do I'm a strengths coach, so I help people see what's really beautiful about themselves through an assessment called Clifton Strengths, and it measures 34 qualities. And what I always talk about is, you always see these memes of, I saw one recently that was several skeletons hanging up, and it was, white person, man, woman, black, and like we're all red on the inside is the saying, right? Well, the 34 strengths is actually takes that a step further and says, here's 34 ways we can find something in common with anyone, because we all bring these things to the table. And so I encourage people to really understand their strengths and look at that as a way to bring their confidence up through self-awareness and self-acceptance, because often the things that are most beautiful about us are the things we downplay the most. And we really want to make sure that we're getting a chance to shine in our own spotlight and share that with others as well, and allow people to do that, because the more objectively we see ourselves, the more objectively we see other, which actually brings about more compassion and less judgment. So that's my, my vision for the world.
Okay, so I'm up, and we're almost about out of time, so I'm gonna be. I would like to tell them, well, the younger generation, I think it's important to them for them to know that they're valuable, that they're important, that their word means something, that they have rights, and they should know that.
Okay, girls, I think we better come back to the link because 2 minutes is not enough to end this beautiful conversation. So I'll wait for you here once more, please. Also think this way, and also are out there doing these conversations with other people, and that's so beautiful.
Like, just like, that's the main thing you need to do to brighten someone's day, to make a difference. Just smile a person that walks by. Just if someone needs help, just approach and say, hey, can I help you, or something. If you see someone in trouble, go for it. That's the only thing that will actually make a change, because right now so many people are angry, or they are so focused in their own lives that they don't acknowledge other people around. So yeah, the little things count to make your part. Like, even if you teach or you talk to someone about your period that month, or you talk to someone about some news that came into the TV last night, or you just smile to my alarm, like you just smile to the person next to you at the bus. Like, just make the little things count and be nice to people.
Well, I'm inspired out here. So I think my message would be like watching this conversation, and like we have different opinions, different mindsets, and everything comes to one point where we have to talk to people. I think if we're just open to talk to people and not believe they're against us, or I don't know, they're trying to invalidate our opinions or our rights, just bring them to the table and be open to talk to them and to make them understand, just like everybody said. And also I would add, like, we as a woman, we have to grow, we have to go out there and show what we are capable of. It doesn't matter if we're a great, like, we are a great wife, or we are a great professional. If we don't want to work, we just want to be mothers, or took care of our places, it's not something to be ashamed of. It's not something that you, oh my God, I have to do that. No, we are in this movement so people can have freedom. Women can have a choice. So if you choose to be what you were meant to be, just do it. So like Joe, for example, she's a coach. She's just out there helping women and people to see their fully potential. So I think everybody should live their personal potential because we are here to contribute to the world and to serve other people. So if we just do that, I think the world will be a better place because if we can make a small change where we are, so yeah, soon enough we will have big amount of small changes and it will become a big change. So that would be what I would have to say. Yeah. And Jenny, would you like to add something to the message or we can just close?
No, just close.
I think something that I heard the other day or that I read about was when you choose to make a change in your own life, or like you said, Priscilla, like be who you were meant to be, you're not making just a change for yourself, but you're making a change for so many people after you who then can feel like they can do that. And so I think it's good to remember, like, when you're afraid or when you're like, I don't know if I should do this, that you can remember you're doing it for other people too, and for the women that come after you, so that they can be empowered by what you have done and they can feel confident that they can do it, you know? So I think that's something that really, I think has impacted me living in another country and kind of like making a story that I don't have a lot of people to follow, but knowing that I'm going to be someone who other people can look up to and can follow. I think that's something that we can all do in different ways. And so that other.
So thank you so much for being here today. It was such a rich and amazing conversation. I can't even say into words. So Imfundo Kahle, thanks you so much for being here and for sharing your ideas, your opinions, and to, I don't know, put your word out there in the world, just like we had said. And yeah, thank you for this conversation. I hope to see you soon someday to other talks like this.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great.
I really loved it.
Everybody.
I'm gonna be thinking after the conversation.
Me too. It's good for all of our minds.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so big hug for all of you. Take care.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hello.
Bye.
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 Bye.